Hello everybody, Dan here, just quickly to inform you or to warn you that the sound quality on tonight's episode is not the best. We had a problem on the Zoom call while we were recording it, and I've tried to do some things to improve it, but it is far from ideal. So please forgive us. Hope you can enjoy the show anyway.
Now the podcast starts.
Hello everyone. If this is your first time listening to the show, then welcome. And if you're a returning listener, welcome back. And thanks for sticking with us. This show talks about horror. Horror in film, TV, other media, other items which we think of as adjacent to horror, and sometimes other things from our lives which we'd like to talk about just because that's who we are. Now, last week on this podcast, we did some talking about ghosts, and this week we're going to talk about some more ghosts, because this week we're going to talk about the Haunting of Hill House.
Yay!
And I'm delighted to be in very good company for this chat. My name's TD Velasquez, but you can call me Dan, and I'm delighted to be joined by...
Kirsty in Shropshire.
And also...
Stella Gaynor in Manchester.
And giving us a marvellous quartet.
Ian Winterton in Cheshire.
Superb. Now, when Ian set up the Zoom recording for this call, because Ian always does that for us, bless him, I think it was deliberate, Ian, that you called the Zoom meeting the Haunting of Ill House.
Yeah.
Yeah, so...
sort of hip-hop thing.
Gonna get the Beastie Boys around in a bit.
Yeah. Sadly, there's a bit of lurgy going round among our various households. Mm-hmm. Kirsty, thank you so much for joining us, and I know that it's particularly difficult where you are.
Yes, we're on day 6 of self-isolation, and my husband has definitely got the Rona. I probably have the Rona, but he's worse than me. But we're kind of cabin fever has sort of slightly started to set in now. My 5-year-old son has spent most of the day in his pants, shooting toy guns.
Fair enough.
That's where we are.
That sets him up for a lifetime of survivalism. He knows exactly how to respond to an apocalypse. Bless him.
Yeah.
How about you, Ian? You're all poorly as well, aren't you?
Well, yeah, my son's been poorly, and we went for the COVID test, and it was negative. And he's gone back to school, so let's hope it was. So,
well, yeah.
You can but go with the test, can't you? And he's better, so that would suggest he didn't have it. And we've had exactly the same sore throat and a bit of a cough and bunged up nose as he has. So kids aren't supposed to have the same symptoms as us, are they? So I'd say we've all had the same thing. We're all getting better after just a few days. So hopefully we haven't got coronavirus.
Oh, that's
good. Not COVID-19 anyway.
Yeah,
well,
to be specific, to be medically specific, we've all had loads of coronaviruses.
Kirsty, you're doing a public service. You're doing a service to us just by turning up, but also by being on a publicly available podcast while ill with COVID. You stand as evidence that yes, it does really exist. Whatever some people may say.
Well, yes, I mean, I think my husband does a much better job of standing as evidence than I'm doing right now. But he's not doing much standing at all. Bless him. He's.
Isn't this the second time he's had it?
It is, yeah, which is really unfortunate. So I mean, it demonstrates to me, I think, that my immune system is clearly much stronger than his, because
he's just addicted to hoaxes.
well, yeah. So yeah, but well, we both work in education, but he works in primary, so I think he was always going to be a much higher risk in terms of getting it than I am in kind of 16 to 18, where we're it's everything is stand back, whereas you can't do that with he's been working with 7 and 8 year olds, so yeah, it's not possible. So
very grim, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah, with their snot in their hands.
Snot in their hands and their stickiness.
Yeah.
Oh dear. The mental images. Splendid. Yeah. And how are you, Stella?
I'm fine. I'm all right. I mean, I'm tired as usual, but I'm fine.
Oh,
germ free.
That's good. We'll take good news when it comes.
How are you, Dan? That's the other question. I think as host, you rarely get asked, so I'm gonna.
Oh, bless you, Kirsty. I'm all right, thank you. I'm a bit more tired today than usual because I had a lot of work on today, so I got up especially early and had a shot. Whoa, that was Ian. I didn't.
I was reaching for the mute button and I couldn't quite get it.
So you just exploded.
It's all right. The cloud of germs will not reach us here. We're at a safe distance. But I convinced myself to get out of bed at 5:30 this morning on the promise that I would allow myself to watch Hannibal while I did my morning workout. And then discovered that Hannibal is no longer on Netflix. I typed in Han and it came up The Possession of Hannah Grace. So I thought, ooh, Stella says that's good, but where's Hannibal? And so because I got kind of a third of the way into the third series and then decided it's actually too long since I've seen series 1 and 2 and I had to go back and watch it all. And that's what I was planning to do. Because Ian, you were asking last week, you said that the episodic nature of it, the Killer of the Week, didn't really appeal to you. And it's funny, I think, it is 5 years since I've watched it, but I think the Killer of the Week thing kind of fades away by the end of the first series. I thought that the second series is very much an ongoing plot. Yeah.
So lots of TV does that, doesn't it? Like of every genre, they kind of. It's almost like they don't trust you with an ongoing storyline until they've got going. And then every time you get an episode that isn't part of the story of the week, that isn't part of the ongoing thing, you're like, what are you dealing with a one-off for? Give me the story.
Well, yeah, that's true.
Your trifles.
I remember that watching Fringe, like it got more and more just about the parallel universes thing. But it started off being a bit like the X-Files. Yeah. And they gave up on that as soon as everyone got addicted to and then they sort of retconned everything to be about the parallel universe thing, and then it got really silly. But Fringe was quite typical of a sort of the evolution of a modern TV drama.
I only saw one episode of Fringe, but it was it's the first episode which has the outbreak of a flesh-eating virus on a plane, and I have to say that was the image that came into my head as soon as you coughed. Just
right.
So that obviously landed for me, but I didn't feel the need to watch the rest of the series. I don't mind an episodic series. I don't mind a series with a continuing story, but it can be a bit annoying when it starts as one thing and then turns into the other. It was when the X-Files became all about the ongoing conspiracy that I kind of lost interest in it. I liked it when it was just the monster of the week kind of thing right at the beginning. So
it's that transition, isn't it, from the kind of Netflix kind of golden age of television, serialized rather than episodic, and that kind of the difference between something that has sort of 22, 24 episodes a season, kind of mainstream network stuff like Fringe. That kind of needs that or needed that kind of single narrative and arc across an episode. There's so many of them, and Buffy did it beautifully.
Yes, it did.
Yeah.
Kind of its arc, but kind of each episode was distinctly different. And then that transition into kind of HBO style serial kind of stuff. And a lot of networks going, I don't know what we do with this. And I think that, kind of Hannibal sits in that space, doesn't it, of kind of it's 13 episodes, but it's network, and so they necessarily. I mean, I know Brian Fuller absolutely knew where he was taking it, but I'm not sure that NBC knew what they were really kind of paying for.
Right. Okay.
They were just confused.
Yeah, but good.
Yeah, and I must say, I think the thing that Buffy did, which I wish more series would do, is that their arcs. I mean, there was an overall arc, sort of, but basically it was season-long arcs, wasn't it? So each year started afresh again, and that was pretty new at the time, I think.
Yeah.
And I can't think of that many shows which have done that since.
Well, Supernatural did that, and Supernatural's just finished.
Just finished, yeah.
But to be honest, what 15 seasons? I think I got to about season 11 and went, do you know what? I don't care. There's another apocalypse. I really like. How many have you now stopped? I really, failing to, I kind of felt like at that point, that my viewing habits have been more shaped by the whole, shorter, more, kind of crafted arc. And that I kind of had got myself out of watching those kind of monster a week type things.
Right.
Well, it's like a slog, It's like who really has got time in this day and age? I mean, obviously pre-corona, who's got time to watch 22 episodes of, more demons being hunted?
No, I think it's been an advantage of the post-financial crash world that series have just got shorter, and it's made things more interesting on the whole. I guess while we're talking about long form storytelling on TV, it's a good point to segue into the main topic of the week then. So because it is a beautiful example, so we'll talk about The Haunting of Hill House. I'm going to label this episode as a missed classic on the grounds that I missed it. You all didn't. Also, and I think it's kind of a modern classic. It seemed to be received as a classic as soon as it landed. And 2 years ago when I first became a member of Netflix, I did it for 3 reasons: Annihilation, Star Trek Discovery, and The Haunting of Hill House. And for some reason, I didn't get around to watching The Haunting of Hill House until a couple of weeks ago.
And you hate Discovery.
Yeah, well, but I do now. But I've watched a lot of it, Ian.
Oh, so
I got my money's. Yeah,
it and hated it.
Yes, I paid for hatred to be injected into my bloodstream.
And Annihilation was a bit near.
Oh, I loved it.
I think Annihilation was great.
If I'm thinking, is that the one where it's spoilers for anyone listening? Is that the one where he's an android? They're all androids.
No.
Oh,
no.
Is that
weird? It kind of.
Oh, it's Alex. What's his name?
Yeah, Alex Garland.
Alex Garland.
It's the thing you're thinking of, Ian. Does it have Cuba Gooding Jr. in it? There's a sci-fi movie on Netflix with the title a bit like Annihilation.
Yeah.
That's I think is probably about robots, but I never thought to watch it. I just caught the trailer.
Yeah, I didn't like Annihilation either. Anyway.
Oh right, okay.
Was that that was the one with Natalie Portman in it and
yes.
Garland? It was all right, but it was like a lot of Alex Garland stuff. It starts off well, and then it's a bit like The Destination is a bit underwhelming. Like
okay,
whether it's Sunlight or Devs recently, they all kind of work up to a point, and then I don't really like where we end up.
Oh,
you mean Sunshine when you're saying Sunlight?
Sunlight.
Yeah. No,
I'm on it today.
I'd agree on the level of Sunshine, but I enjoyed all the others a lot. And Kirsty and I were raving about Devs on here months ago, weren't we?
I did love Devs. I just wasn't. I didn't love it that much once I've watched it. That makes sense. I didn't want to go back and watch it again. Now I know where it got to.
Yeah.
I wasn't that. I was a bit underwhelmed by the end.
I can understand that as well.
Yeah, and that to me is the difference between great. I mean, in a way, this is the longest segue into Hill House ever, but I feel a little about Hill House because I did.
Yeah, well, I thought
Destination.
Well, let's talk very briefly about that and our general impressions of it, because let's speak spoiler free for a few minutes.
Yeah.
Just so that the listener who has not seen it might know whether or not we recommend it. So you've already more or less said that, Ian. So would you recommend that this show to someone who'd not seen it, or is there a caveat that you'd give them?
If what's not,
or would you just go and watch it? Sorry, Ian. My question was, if someone has not watched The Haunting of Hill House yet, would you recommend it to them, or would you give them a caveat?
Oh, I'd say definitely go and see it. I'd say it's brilliant, and much better than Bly Manor, which is probably a whole other podcast. We might try not to talk about Bly Manor in comparison. No, and it worked brilliantly, and it had some amazing episodes in it. So I think you should just watch it anyway. I just didn't quite like the end. Yeah, like I was saying, the destination where the narrative.
Okay.
I liked the journey, didn't like the destination. It's like a really nice train to Milton Keynes.
Oh dear, what a metaphor.
It wasn't quite Milton.
Yeah,
it wasn't quite Milton Keynes, but it was.
In a way, it reminds me of the fact that I love the kind of long form TV storytelling, as we've discussed on this podcast before. But if your movie is 4 times as long as a movie, then its ending has 4 times the chance of being disappointing. So I think sometimes the ending of these kind of limited shows can kind of fall a bit short. Stella, what would you say to somebody who hasn't seen The Haunting of Hill House?
I'd say, what is wrong with you? Go and watch it immediately.
Good. Okay. Nice. Succinct. Kirsty?
I would say, if you like horror, if you like ghost stories, you should watch it. But my caveat would be that, if you recently had a bereavement, or if you don't like something that is more kind of melodramatic and emotional than it is kind of outright scary, then maybe Hill House isn't for you.
Okay.
That's quite sensible.
Yeah.
Just tell people, watch it.
I sort of agree with all of you.
The standout episode is the funeral, which is
is
just amazing.
Stunning.
The funeral.
Yeah. So, well, that's a recommendation from all of us, qualified from a couple of us. I'd agree with everything you've said, actually. So let's move on, and we can talk about anything we want from the series. We are in full spoilers, because I think there's so much to say that you couldn't say without spoiling it. Kirsty, you look poised to make a start on this. So
have we all read the original book?
No.
I haven't. Although after watching the series, I started listening to an audiobook of it, read by David Warner, which is hilarious. Because
that's possibly not. That's probably not how you should be feeling. But it's it's only hilarious because he's a wonderful actor and a wonderful reader. But they've either just said to him, "Just do it in your own voice," or he wasn't prepared to do like American accents or anything like that. So he just basically all reads it as if it's him. And so Eleanor doesn't really sound like David Warner, I imagine, If I was choosing and I only had one person, I would get a woman.
Yes.
Woman actors that you sometimes hear about. Because it's written by a woman. Most of the main protagonists, most of the main characters in it are women.
Yes, and possibly an American woman as well. So, yeah.
But anyway, David Warner, close.
But he has such a beautiful voice.
He does,
so,
But I think as a project, it's got the TV series has got so little to do with the book. Like literally, they just bought the rights to the title and the notoriety, which is very cynical in a way. You could really have a pop at them for how cynical they were in that it's got nothing, and then they just sort of plunder the names and the location and the passages.
Actually, that's something that I could have said when we were in non-spoilers, is that I think if you are looking for an adaptation of the book, I maybe wouldn't recommend it because it's nothing like it.
I also wouldn't recommend it. It doesn't Catherine Zeta-Jones either because that's pants.
No, I don't think anybody ever has recommended that.
No. But 1963's The Haunting is pretty cool. I'm pretty faithful.
It's an amazing film.
Yeah. So I can see why they didn't want to do one because it's kind of a bit like doing Turn of the Screw. It's been done really well.
Yeah.
What are you up against? But then they went and did that for their next one.
Yeah.
Haunting of Hill House it's basically, I mean, they describe it as a sort of more of a riff than an adaptation, which is just their excuse. It could have been an episode of American Horror Story and just changed the name of the house. And there's literally nothing else. There's hardly anything in it. There's a few things lifted from the book, but they didn't need to be. The main character doesn't need to be called Eleanor. So many of the things that are in the book have nothing to do with what you see in this TV series. So it's almost like they just need to be completely separated. It's a bit like, I don't know, so many of these examples, but From Hell, the book, the comic book by Alan Moore.
Yeah.
From Hell, the Johnny Depp film. Why did they buy the rights to that particular telling of Jack the Ripper and then not bother doing anything to do with the book? They just literally bought the title and Alan Moore's name.
Yeah.
It is a bit perplexing. So is that your analysis, Ian? You think it was kind of they were selling it on the name, so it was kind of a cynical move?
Well, maybe who knows how these things actually get made. Maybe you do need that notoriety to get something through the door. If you sort of go, oh, we've got something, it's going to be the haunting of a house. It's going to be a spooky house, and people are going to say, well, we've got American Horror Story. Thanks very much. Tell us why this is different. And if you say, oh, it's based on a classic, much-loved book that's got proof of concept and a fan base, then maybe that's why it gets, But if you read the book, it opens with the same words, other than they change them. And then, I mean, if you're getting really fussy, I know some people. There's a female friend of mine who loves Shirley Jackson. And she hated this because they didn't bother with the things they changed, and the fact they didn't need to really touch the book. The fact that they made the author not a woman, they made her this quite unpleasant man, and so they put her words into the unpleasant man's mouth, and they're the bits that are directly lifted from the book. The way it opens and other passengers throughout it. So it kind of, on a sort of very basic, does this work as a scary 10 hours of TV? Then yes, but what does it do to Shirley Jackson's? I wonder how many people bought this book and read 5 pages and went, "This is shit," because they weren't ready for quite how dry it is as a book. It's a masterpiece, but it's very dry and it's nothing like watching 10 hours of Netflix, especially if it's 10 hours of Netflix. But I've got a quote with I've got a quote here from Mike Flanagan, which is way more.
All right.
He describes it as way more of a riff than an adaptation. There's just enough material in the book to make an amazing movie, but not enough to adapt into a 10-hour TV series. And they didn't want to go up against the 1963 version. So, and then they describe it as a remix, which is very
right.
So
it's very 1990.
Yeah, they sort of, it's a it's a remix. Yeah, this is the DJ Shadow of horror. But yeah, it's more interesting to break down the book and pull out the characters and the themes and individual moments and pieces of prose, even that had really stuck with me, and try to rearrange it. I mean, it is good, but basically, it's almost like, well, we bought this property and we used it as a jumping off point. Actually, it's got nothing to do.
Which maybe
very little to do with it's got very little to do with the original book.
Well, I'll just say maybe, that was part of it. Maybe they had to fill a 10-hour series order, and that was the only way to go for it. I think we might know someone who knows the truth, though. Stella, have you got an idea about why this was made like this?
I do know why this was made. Netflix approached Flanagan and asked him to make a gothic horror, and they wanted it done at a very certain time because they had to plug the hole that was left around Halloween of that year because Stranger Things was late.
Oh,
so Netflix wanted a gothic long form drama from Flanagan to plug the hole left by Stranger Things. Netflix had a decent run of gothic-y kind of texts. So they'd done Hemlock Grove. Stranger Things got bits of gothic-y stuff in it, like all the science v nature stuff. And they had Haunted on the way. So they were sort of building this nice gothic horror sort of section of their curated catalogue, I suppose. So they approached Flanagan and said, can you make a long form gothic-y horror? And he said, yeah, all right. And then he went away, and then he came back after having working with his team on the idea of Hill House. The first thing that he showed to Netflix in order to get them to say yes and say, okay, here's all the cash, please go and make it, was he showed them his script and his idea and his treatment for episode 6, Two Storms, The Funeral. He was like, only on Netflix can I do this. So can we do that? And Netflix said, yeah, can you have it done by Halloween, please? Because we've got a big gaping hole in our schedule. So that's what happened.
Right. Oh, well. That makes it rather a wonderful circumstance that it was really a kind of desperate brief, and they actually have made some great art out of it. I still think it's kind of surprising, given that they probably didn't need to call it Hill House, and they could have not adapted the book, but that's interesting. Kirsty, what are your thoughts?
Oh, okay.
At this point,
first of all, just to clarify that there, because obviously, if people are listening and they're listening to the spoilers, but they haven't seen it, then obviously, Two Storms is the funeral episode which has 5 continuous shots in it. Yeah,
the longest one is 17 minutes.
Yeah. But that one, apparently, what I learned when I was doing a bit of research to this is it was in terms of production, they shot that one last because of the logistics of doing that. So they shot the rest of the series and then that.
Right.
So
it's so good.
Yeah, I mean,
it's great.
The thing I really wanted to talk about was Bent Neck Lady.
Okay. Yeah.
Because and here's what I just think. So obviously we have the kind of trope in haunted house narratives of the kind of scary ghost. That's the obvious thing to say. Yeah. But often they're presented, aren't they, in a way that they're completely monstrous and devoid of humanity. And sometimes they can be then backed up, explained by the plot. Thinking about Woman in Black with a kind of tragic backstory, which explains their kind of horrificness. What I loved about Bent Neck Lady, and I loved it in such a way that it helped explain, or it helped make it more horrific, was the idea of the kind of reflexive kind of structure within the reveal of. So again, this was spoilers. So that Bent Neck Lady is Nell, and then Nell encounters this ghost throughout her childhood at the various points, and this ghost just screams at her. And then when we see Nell's death and her sort of drop through her own kind of her own life, and just have this realization of it's me.
Yeah.
Like
that moment was.
It's the positioning where, whilst scary ghosts might be humanized by the narrative or whatever, we're very rarely shown, or at least I can't think of many examples of us being shown from the perspective of the ghost. and dehumanizing them in that moment. I know she's not, because she's sort of dying in that, in that moment, but it was just so well done and so powerful, and that and it's that contradiction between when we see ghosts, or as they're presented in fiction and also sometimes in life, we have this sense that they're kind of somehow trapped in a moment, they're repeating a moment, because we keep seeing them, or they're being shown to us sort of often repeating actions on the same kind of moment of time. But that's not true for Nell. Nell has this one big drop, this one realization, and then her sort of spirit form is what we're going to get played out in the last few episodes. So it's from a human perspective, it seems like she's trapped in this moment because they're seeing her across many years. But for her, a character, it's not. It's a singular thing, which I thought was quite interesting.
It's beautifully done.
Yeah. The idea that Nell that she's trapped in that moment, it's just replaying all the way through her life. When, I mean, I don't know, I never see things coming in films or TV shows. I always sit there going, whenever I'm supposed to. I didn't know in The Sixth Sense that Bruce Willis was dead right until the end. Like, I never get anything.
I feel so stupid, but I didn't.
So when it is revealed to be Nell, I was really kind of as traumatized as she was. I think throughout the series, there's moments of intense sadness. And I rewatched it again recently because it is going in my book. And again, I just cried at all the sad bits. It was like, this whole thing, it's got some scary moments, but it's just heartbreaking all the way through. So the episode when Nell's back at the house and Stephen moves to one side and her husband's there, her dead husband, and I'm just like, oh my God, right, that's it, I'm done. And I had to stop that episode and I need to watch this another day because it's just so heartbreaking all the way through, and it's got the terrifying moments. But I do like this, the theme of everybody, not just Nell, just being trapped in something. So Olivia's trapped in her own mind. Shirley's trapped by her need to fix things, like she can't get past anything unless she's fixed it. Stephen's trapped in his own absolute willful ignorance. Also, I can't read my writing. There we go. Theo's trapped by her own psychic abilities, like she's stuck in a pair of gloves. She can't get them off and connect with anyone, even though she desperately wants to, I think. She says she doesn't. Luke's trapped under his bed. Little Luke, that little boy who plays Luke, he's adorable.
It's just heartbreaking.
When he's trapped in the dumbwaiter as well, and then he's trapped in his addiction. Nell's cornered by the bent neck lady at every turn she goes, and then he's trapped in a marriage to his dead wife. He's just talking to her all the time, so everyone's just stuck while I'm sat there crying watching it.
The way the series juxtaposes little, very, very little cute little Luke with the tragedy of his later life and the struggles he goes through is so powerful. And beyond its content and quality as a horror piece, as a drama about a fractured family, I mean, I've got 9 brothers and sisters, right? And we're all over the place. And sometimes it's a bit difficult. I could empathise with that pain of people being cut off from each other, or not quite understanding each other, or trying to reach out to each other but not doing it very well. And the way the series is structured, which becomes apparent after the first couple of episodes, where you basically get one episode for each sibling, don't you? And it tells their childhood and their adulthood in kind of parallel and cuts between them. And the fact that it does that's a really ambitious structure for a drama about a complicated family, that it does that and at the same time manages to be coherently frightening is kind of extraordinary, really. I suppose with the bent neck lady, I was terrified, but I did find that obviously she's less frightening when you know it's Nell, and it becomes a different kind of emotion, and it is heartbreaking. I mean, Nell is the central character, really, although it's very much an ensemble piece, and they all get equal shout to it. But the fact that that actress is so good kind of almost makes me want to watch The Haunting of Bly Manor, because she's the lead in that, isn't she? And one of the few good things I've heard about that is that she is very good. I don't know if you and you, Kirsty, and you, Ian, might disagree, but apparently.
Well, Bly Manor's. I'm going to go back and finish Bly Manor, but I think what you were just describing with Hill House, that they get the family drama and the scares and the tone of it all works perfectly, sort of meshed together. That's exactly what they don't quite get right with Bly Manor. And some people are able to sort of forgive it a bit more. Some people have gone, well, just go into it not expecting to be scared every episode, and actually it's quite a strange time travel-y weird thing, weird gothic but not necessarily scary all the time.
So, some people have described it as a love story, haven't they, really?
Yeah, and I haven't watched it to the end, but it's not just
Kirsty looks skeptical.
Well, it's not just the lead. I mean, there are some really good characters. There are some really good actors in there, and it all looks as good as Hill House. It just doesn't quite. From what I've seen, it's basically, instead of making stuff up based on, using the Shirley Jackson book as a jumping off point, and then making stuff up that all fits together, they've kind of borrowed stuff from lots of Henry James. And made stuff up, and it seems a bit of a mess. And they're also, they are telling a lot more in Bly Manor of the actual novel Turn of a Screw, which we've all seen done a million times. All seen in The Innocents done perfectly. So it's kind of a much more of a weird mix. It's more against it.
Yeah, I watched all of it, and
also the little girl that Stella couldn't stand watching. She just voiced Peppa Pig.
Yeah,
I don't watch that either, do I?
So that might be why you can't stand her.
You know what? My daughter didn't really bother with Peppa Pig. I only saw like seconds of it, so I never had to deal with Peppa Pig. But I cannot deal with that girl in that Bly Manor. She just, I don't know. No,
her dialogue's awful as well.
I know.
Watched The Innocents not long after I'd watched that, and it's like, no, the girl in that doesn't have shit dialogue.
She just talks.
Oh, how wonderful, or whatever it is. She says, "How very splendid."
Perfectly splendid.
Yeah, there's no need.
Well, The Innocents, the dialogue was written by Truman Capote and John Mortimer. That's two pretty heavyweight writers.
Yeah.
They get on to adapt the book.
and
But people that write for Netflix are the Truman Capote of their day.
Well, yeah, that's true. But
very splendid.
But what I more mean is that because they had like an American writer and a British writer, they were, and they're adapting a novel by an American writer with British citizenship who lived in Britain. There's kind of they're covering cultural boundaries, and they're more likely to get it right there. Whereas I don't know if Mike Flanagan has any connection to Britain.
Yeah, that's no excuse for something being bad. It's like, well, you didn't.
No, I'm not.
You didn't put the people in place to get this right, then, did you? So again, we massively interrupted Kirsty then. So what were you saying, Kirsty?
No, I was going to say I did stick it out to the end just because I think I was, that I had such a fond reaction to Hill House. I thought I'm going to give it, its full run and just see how I feel about it at the end. And there is the whole kind of nationality issue. It does feel very much like, here are some American people. It's what they imagine it's like in Britain in the 1980s. The actress whose name I didn't find out, who played Nell, who's the lead in Bly. It's not anywhere near as good a performance, I don't think, but I don't think that there's, it doesn't have the same emotional depth.
Yeah.
Are kind of, there's a sense that it could have been deeper. There are times where it just sort of feels like a little bit of a wasted opportunity, or moments that, there are clearly kind of ghosts in the house in the same way that there are ghosts in Hill House, but they're never exploited for kind of scares the way that you kind of want them to be. And they're like in Hill House, they're in the back of shops, and you're going to go, oh my god, and there's a thing that's going to, and then it doesn't. And I think that just going to go back to I don't think it's necessarily Little Miss Peppa Pig's fault, but there's the one of the reason why Hill House I think works is because the kids who are playing the child versions of the Crane family, they're all distinct, they're all likable, all kind of, you believe them as a kind of family unit and as individual characters. The two young actors in Bly they just weren't particularly likable. We kind of I think we joined them too late in their horrendous experience, and I know that part of that is there's a mystery to be solved there, but the result is that they're just often not very likable, and that's a problem, I think.
Yeah, well, that's what I couldn't get past.
Yeah,
it's like, I want to kick you, and you're a child, and we're not allowed to do that. So I'm going to turn this off.
Well, it's often those kind of things when you've got children and they are not the monsters, is that you need to, particularly as adult viewers, you need to feel like they're at risk and that you don't want any harm come to them, which is why you're talking about little Luke under the bed and stuff. He's but you worry, don't you, because he's so little and defenseless, and you worry. Whereas these two kids, not particularly that.
Just don't care.
Just seem
I know we've moved on to talking about Bly Manor, but it's the fact that they kept using chunks from the novel, and instead of putting in the governess, which is very nice and period, they kept going the au pair.
Yeah.
Au pair. It's like, that's a shit word to use in that way. It's awful. The governess was cool. Call her a name. Don't call her the au pair. Just there was just too many things that maybe Americans can handle it more than us, but it just didn't look like it. Looked like a sort of Disneyland version of England. It was just.
I felt bad as well because I really liked in Hill House. I was so grateful for Henry Thomas actually as a presence.
He's great.
He was great in that. And I mean, just they get him to do this British accent, and kind of make him quite a dislikable character, which it's explained, but it's there's something that I thought he did really well as this sort of kind of earnest sort of dad trying to do his best in Hill House, but clearly kind of flawed in and dealing with the effects of the decisions that he'd made, but in Bly just again didn't care.
I think a problem as well is that they're all so believable in Hill House, and they seem like real people. You don't come out of it going, I want to see another film or whatever with those actors in, because at least the way I felt, they didn't really seem like actors. No. I didn't know them from other things. They were just Nell. They were just Luke. And what's really well done is the equivalence between the actors playing the young versions of the characters and the older ones. They always seemed ideal. Except with Luke, whether he's such a cute tiny kid, and he becomes kind of this hulking tragic man. But that's the point as well, and that's really powerful.
Can I just
go on?
Additional point only because I think that what you've just done there for me is just sort of elucidated one of the reasons why I think Bly doesn't work is because you're so invested in the characters in Hill House through the performances and through the actors, even if, like Henry Thomas, you might recognise him from something else, or Carla, how do you say her last name?
Gugino. I don't know actually. I've never heard it said.
Yeah, even if you know them from something else, you get sucked in pretty quickly. And the problem with Bly is that it establishes it almost like as a rep company. And we start off with Carla Gugino and doing this accent which travels around the UK. I think it's somewhere like I think it's meant to be Manchestery, but it's not totally convincing. No. And for me, and then you see the guy who plays Luke, and he's in it. He's doing a Scottish accent, and then kind of other other actors. To be honest, I didn't clock that it was the same actress who played Nell.
Right.
No, I didn't at all. So
no.
I did look her name up.
She's blonde, isn't she, in Bly Manor?
Is she called Victoria Pedretti?
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
No, but when we have also I think Elizabeth Razor is the only one who, and Michael Hoosman doesn't come back either. But then you've got the actress who plays Theo is in a later episode as well. And again, not terribly convincing. It's that sense of that reality that was so perfectly crafted in the first series gets kind of undone by this whole, kind of repertory, kind of.
I do like Henry Thomas I do like Henry Thomas in Bly Manor, though. I don't mind him, but I didn't realise till recently that he's from E.T.
Right.
He's Elliot from E.T.
He's the original Elliot, yeah.
And that's why there's a bit with the Luke character in Hill House. Yeah. And he's got an E.T. lunchbox with Elliot's face on it.
Yeah.
I'm Googling it.
It's on IMDb. I've just seen it. But I didn't realise because obviously I watch E.T. often, at least once a year. And I don't really know much about what he did afterwards. But yeah, so he plays Henry Wingrave in Bly Manor, a sort of drunken uncle who's I quite like as a character. And he's obviously the younger dad in Hill House.
Yeah, he's obviously got a Flanagan company, isn't he? Because he was just to see as the Jack Nicholson.
Oh yeah. I saw that clip. But let's not forget he was also young Norman Bates in another missed classic, much missed, Psycho 4 at the beginning. So, that surely that's at the top of his CV. Actually,
absolutely,
I thought that was quite good, actually. But anyway, so I want to talk about the bits of Hill House that are frightening to us. But before we go on to that, I just want to quickly mention a couple of things which I found slightly disappointing because I want to get negative stuff out of the way because, I think it's right that we're all full of enthusiasm for this. I suppose my main disappointment was that it got less frightening as it went along, which I think it's fine that it did that in a story sense because it was drawing to a positive conclusion, and I was glad that we had a slightly weird, unexpected, happy ending. But I cared for the characters, so I was glad of it. But it did mean that it was less frightening. I mean, the first episode, it kind of sets up this night when they left Hill House as the most frightening night ever, and then it doesn't show you what happened.
Yeah.
And then you spend episodes building up to it, and it's just the prospect of it is just pants wetting. But then when you actually finally see it, we had a little tea party. Oh, and the big thing of the locked room that they can't get in, and when they do eventually get into it, it's the horrifying reveal of Luke's friend who we thought was an imaginary friend, but is actually the child of the housekeepers, and the mum's poisoned her, hasn't she? In a moment of madness, and it's emotionally horrifying, but it's not what I felt was being set up at the start. And also, I think towards the end of the series, as I started to put together the plot elements, everything that had been hinted at was developed, and I suddenly realised, oh, it's The Shining, isn't it? It's basically The Shining. They're in the Overlook Hotel. It's full of ghosts of various kinds, and it sends you mad. And children end up running out of the place from their mad parent. And I suddenly realised, oh yeah, Mike Flanagan, Stephen King. Yes, it all makes sense. But so that was slightly disappointing, just because it was kind of familiar and because the build-up was so powerful. And that would be my main kind of
why Stephen King
ding against it.
Said he liked it, even though he doesn't usually like this kind of revisionist stuff. He very much said he liked this, and it was a masterpiece.
Oh, okay.
Oh, he doesn't like anything, the miserable sod.
But he did like Hill House. So
And he likes Mike Flanagan, I think.
That's what I mean. Yeah,
Right,
he even found time to slag off Kubrick, for God's sake. So my version was better.
But did you see the promos that they shot for Doctor Sleep, where Flanagan?
I've not seen Doctor Sleep yet.
I haven't seen it, but in the promos, it's Flanagan and King sitting next to each other at the side of the studio on their directors' chairs, and Stephen King very pointedly says, "I think this is a wonderful adaptation of my book, Doctor Sleep." And a wonderful sequel to Stanley Kubrick's film, The Shining, i.e., I have nothing to do with that film, but but I've got to show my approval. Hey dear, I would quite like to see Doctor Sleep, I have to say.
Yeah. It's all right.
Okay, glowing.
I've heard average things about it.
I wonder if I enjoyed it more because I knew it was Mike Flanagan, and I'm sort of slightly more familiar with his work.
Mm.
Yeah. No, it was entertaining enough. Not particularly scary, but
Well, it's not really. I understand it's not really horror in the same way as The Shining was, and the book isn't.
No.
The Doctor Sleep book isn't. So that's fair enough.
I guess things can be whatever they want to be, but I would say if you're a sequel to The Shining and you're not scary, that's like making a sequel to Jaws without a fucking shark in it. it's
You've got a point there, Ian.
These things should be.
Yeah.
If you're a sequel, then it should be tonally the same or similar or a cousin.
Otherwise, who's coming to see it? Who's it for?
Oh, it's a sequel to Jaws, and it's about his wife and how she gets into playing bridge. Sometimes a husband talks about the shark he killed. No death or sharks are in it. It's a sequel.
It's a great drama.
But it's got more cute kids in it, so I think that might be a thing that he does. Small child.
But,
I mean, I would say that on the strength of this, I definitely want to go and check out other Mike Flanagan shots. I haven't seen any of his other things, and things like Gerald's Game and
Gerald's Game on Netflix is really good. I really enjoyed that. Wait, he did Ouija as well, didn't he? I've not seen that.
Or is it the sequel to Ouija he did?
Oh, I don't know.
Yeah, it's about a game of tiddlywinks.
Yeah, well, luckily on that occasion he was sequelizing a horror film which nobody liked, so he could only win on that one. And apparently, because Ouija I remember it got terrible reviews, but the sequel was quite highly acclaimed.
Yeah,
as I remember, but I haven't seen either of them, so I don't know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, but I think what you're talking about with it not being very scary, again, which Bly Manor definitely falls into, and even this is like, obviously we all agree here that we really like the Hill House TV series, but what I didn't like was the sort of slipping into a sort of happy, cozy ending. Which, not just because it's a bastardization of the book, like sticking in that, the beginning of the book is whatever walked there walked alone, and that's the last line of the book as well. So you don't get a happy, cozy ending. You're trapped with the ghosts at the end of the book. It's a terrifying book. And the TV series goes, no, they're all skipping along, being in a happy family, but they're dead. And whatever walked there walked together. In my opinion. and I do not like it.
Yeah.
And I wonder if that's a problem with. We've talked about long form horror before, and the fact that is that a problem with long form things, that you can't have what makes a ghost story good, which is that do it in 90 minutes, and it's a really claustrophobic piece. But as soon as you move into long form, can it be as scary? Are you doing a different thing?
No, I was reading that he was saying that they'd planned a different ending.
All right.
Reveal that they're all in the red room at the end, like they're kind of the illusion of their happy ever after is that, and they're actually just But
that's what I read. That
they
were in the red room. That it was.
He could bring himself to write it, and I do wonder if that is the kind of question of what when you put characters through 8-10 10 hours of trauma that I think the word he was using, he talked about is that they'd earned it. They'd earned their happy ending, which kind of 90 minutes of trauma. I know you don't get to have your happy
Sorry.
No, but kind of 10 hours, then you get to have your happy ending.
Also, it's 10 hours of emotional investment on the part of the audience.
But
10 hours, more than 10 hours, about 16 hours.
But then what you do is you make it someone's fault. You seed their doom earlier on, so that there's a reason. They're not just going through all this trauma and then getting trapped, and then we go, oh my god, I can't believe you trapped them, when they've done everything right. And what you need to do, there's ways of doing it so that they get trapped at the end and you're horrified, but you also know why they got trapped, because somebody couldn't give up that last character flaw. They failed their final test and everyone got fucked because of it. That's the way to do it. But he you can't sort of make other people's creative decisions for you, but that's why I didn't like it that much. Ultimately,
what were you going to say, Stella?
Less scary.
I rewatched it. Yeah, it did get less scary, but I rewatched it, as I said, and I finished it about 10 days ago after a rewatch. And I've rewatching it and probably paying more attention to it this time, so I was trying to make notes and stuff at the same time. I didn't mind the ending as much as I did on the first watch. When I watched it the second time, maybe because I knew what was going to happen, but I did, because even with the first watch I was like, oh, okay, that's the way it ended, and sort of got on with my life. But on the second watch, I don't think I was that offended by the happy ending. I think maybe I definitely cried more on the second watch and felt more for the children and stuff. So maybe when they all did get the reasonably happy ending at the end, I was like, okay, yeah, all right. I think we've been through enough here in this 16 hours.
Yeah.
But and after things like, like the girl with the runny egg eyes and things like that, it was like, I do want everything to be all right, I think. It's a bit strong.
Well, I think for me, it kind of ties more into the overall themes, doesn't it? In the themes of the show, it's about kind of grief, it's about loss, and it's about, or at least my assessment was about kind of forgiveness, and the kind of the equilibrium that needs, I think there's a difference, isn't there, between when you're scared because of jump scares and scary monsters and stuff, and then the kind of the intrinsic human horror that often is much more affecting, and that kind of the fear of losing people that you love, making the wrong decisions around them, and then that leading to tragedy and not being able to fix that, and then how you deal with those things. So I think that for me, sort of this fits for me a little bit alongside the Babadook in terms of it's scary and it's got monsters, but it's about grief and it's about human suffering and how we cope with that. So I didn't mind the ending. I kind of thought the ending was, there is still loss because we still lose. Hugh gives himself up to house, and we've lost Nell, of course, but that feels like a much more kind of an ending at the. That when we say goodbye to her at the end, because the rest of the siblings are saying goodbye to her, and the fact that they've, through all of this horrendous things that have happened to them, have managed to start to deal with those issues that have, where they have hurt each other and, and struggled to kind of move on and accept the trauma of their past. So I kind of narratively, I felt like I was okay with the ending, but I was also, the kind of the bit where Hugh gets brought into the red room at the end, and he's embraced by Olivia, who's kind of happy, but also Nell, who's not happy. It was kind of quite a nice little moment as well. But didn't want to see him join them. So
she wants them all to live, doesn't she?
Yeah, it's a kind of bit, it's a happy sad, isn't it? Bittersweet, kind of. Definitely. Narratively right for me.
Yeah.
I think I would agree with what you said, Dan, that the most disappointing thing for me was that we didn't see what happened on that last night in Hill House. I wasn't pissed off about the ending. I was more like, it was only in the second watch that I noticed, oh, we don't actually see what happens on that fateful last night. So I wanted to see all the ghosts running at them
I
stuff.
thought we did see it, but it was just not what I thought we'd been set up to expect, that it was a chaotic night of terrifying ghosts, but actually it was the emotional horror of discovering that Olivia had killed that innocent girl. And he's just like, right, you've gone crazy, we've got to get the kids out. Although there is the bit where he says to Stephen, close your eyes, because he doesn't want him. Yeah. But
so it's like, what's he closing his eyes against? Is there ghosts everywhere? Like, what is it? And then it's just that's what I needed.
I think bits like that, and the suggestion that the house is like in itself a malevolent entity that wants to destroy the family. Those are the bits that don't quite fit, because that ending doesn't work with that idea. The ending is like an emotional what's the words that they use in screenwriting classes? It's a redemptive kind of emotional ending for the human characters, but the house hasn't gone through redemption. It's still an evil house, or at least that's what the earlier part of the series told us about it. But at the end, we kind of accept.
Trapped in an evil house.
Yeah. So I think that in terms of scripting, there could maybe have been one more draft that eased out those kind of elements.
Yeah.
But it probably wouldn't have been frightening, but it wouldn't have had that.
Ready in time for Halloween.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
But it doesn't pass the Schumacher test, the refrigerator test. Of you can watch something and we go along with it, and then when you get up in the middle of the night to go downstairs to get some milk, and you open the refrigerator and you go, hang on a minute, that's the Joel Schumacher refrigerator test.
All right,
they're the movies.
I thought that was Hitchcock.
I suppose sort of logic.
No, I think I'm pretty sure it's Schumacher.
Well, no, Alfred Hitchcock used to say that. I think he said at one point, if there's a plot hole in the film, I don't mind if the audience don't think about it until they've come down to open the fridge. And Schumacher must have stolen that.
He must have said he did mind, which I mind. I think that sort of, if there's a plot hole, then fine, there's a plot hole, but don't expect me to want to watch your film again.
Yeah.
You've kept me going for 2 hours, fine. Yeah. And then I've gone, oh, hang on, that doesn't hang together. That was me running around telling everyone to go and watch his masterpiece. That's there's stuff that doesn't quite work. So it's a redemptive piece, and the family are all dead but together and supporting each other in an evil house.
Yeah. So like I say,
that's
just one more draft.
That's when the sort of House of Cards of the narrative starts falling apart, and it's far from perfect in that way. But there's so much, like I said, the destination is not so good, but the journey amazing. And the destination's all right.
Yeah. So let's talk about the journey and the scary bits, because we, as we start to round up this discussion, we've only got a few minutes left, I think. Let's all talk about bits that really upset and frightened us. Does anybody want to go first? If not, I will.
You go, Dan.
Okay, thank you.
More than us.
So, I was probably, because I'm scaredy cat, and it really affected me. And I was watching it, I think it was on Halloween night when I got to the episode Bent Neck Lady, and I thought, shall I watch this? And then I thought, no, it's going to screw me up. It's already 1 a.m. I can't deal with that. I'll watch that tomorrow. But yeah, so obviously the Bent Neck Lady is very frightening, although I didn't expect it to turn into the kind of emotional horror of the tragedy of what happens to Nell. And the bit where you realise that she's there watching the moment where her husband had his heart attack or embolism or whatever it was, that's just crushing. But in terms of the pure fear stuff, I think I probably was a bit more afraid of the the ghost of the man with the walking stick who floats down the corridors, possibly because mainly we see him through little Luke's eyes. And he's just this hulking presence. I mean, again, the ending does try and make out, oh no, he's all right, really. He was just a little bloke who's very unhappy and bricked himself up in the wall. And because he was so unhappy, his spirit is huge, or something. But he just, the whole kind of scene where Luke wakes up and hears the knocking and goes and looks at this huge, hulking, floating, bizarre figure. And it also touched on the artistic license of ghosts, that, you know, the director or whoever can choose to make the spirit look bizarre and then not really explain it, although this series does try and explain his appearance a bit. But, you know, he looks like a massive Jim Henson Creature Workshop kind of puppet guy. You know, he's left his ordinary human form behind and become this Babadook-esque figure. And then when the adult Luke keeps seeing him appearing in the streets and stuff, that whole episode is just so compelling. I think that's probably my favourite episode, apart from the funeral episode, because of the cocktail of horrors in it. You know, the emotional horror of Luke's struggle with addiction, and then the fact that his friend, whose name I can't remember, who he goes looking for when she runs away from the shelter, you know, she ends up stealing money from him and all that kind of thing. And all the way through that, he's being haunted by this figure. Oh, and then he's beaten up, isn't he, by some random guys. And he's just kind of being stalked by this ghost figure. So, yeah. And the bit where the whole episode about Shirley and the thing with the are they rabbits or mice or something? The kittens. The kittens.
Kittens.
Yeah. And she's desperate, and one of them dies, and she's desperately hoping it will wake up.
There's a fly in its mouth.
Yeah. Oh, gee. Just shivers down the spine, and gosh. So, I could go on. There's a lot more. Who'd like to nominate other moments of spookiness or other great moments?
I think you probably covered more than I've. The bent net leg is really the bit that sticks out.
Yeah.
That's the big invention of the thing.
Yeah.
And I guess I wasn't scared all that much for most of it.
No.
I was.
I wanted to be.
I'm glad I'm not alone.
I was scared. I was scared enough in general to keep watching.
Yeah.
But nothing really jumped out massively.
I'll tell you,
it was great.
Well, it's the bit at the end of the first episode with Nell.
She's just in Stephen's flat.
Yeah.
Just goes,
and in a way, the series is never that frightening again. But because it was only the first episode, I was like, oh my god, this is gonna be. This is just the beginning, you know.
There's the moment where she jumps between the sisters in the car. So driving a car, and she just darts between them as they're driving and screams.
Yeah.
I knew that was coming, obviously, with the second watch, but I still jumped.
Yeah.
But then, obviously, the bent net lady, she was definitely stopping me from getting up in the middle of the night to go to the toilet for a while. And the monologue about the runny egg eyes. So the guy who's it's the Narcotics Anonymous meeting, isn't it? And there's the veteran guy, and he tells his story of them finding the little girl who'd been burnt. And that was a thing that I just kept thinking about for several days after. Definitely stuck with me. Anything else? What bothered me actually most, I think, aside from the bent net lady, was afterwards I found an article that was about all the ghosts that are in the house. And there's something like 80 ghosts in the house. And it was it's probably BuzzFeed or something, wasn't it? But it had a still where it showed each ghost. And I looked at that and I was like, God, there's all these ghosts that I kept missing. And then on the second watch, I was like, oh, there it is.
Right.
And I kept pausing it to go, look, it's there, the faces in the stairs. I was like, good God. No wonder I was so uncomfortable watching it, because the house is just watching you.
Yeah. To me, it's the subtleties of it rather than, yes, the bent lady did absolutely kind of terrify me. But I think it's the more kind of subtle moments of sort of disturbance where it hints at stuff rather than specifically shows it. So in the episode with Luke, he starts rubbing his neck.
Yeah.
Halfway through the episode, and then starts talking about like his legs feel stiff and he's cold.
Yeah, like he's
they established the twin thing.
Yeah.
That's it, the twin thing.
Course, yeah. Oh yeah.
It's just like that.
But it's the sadness, isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, and and it's like the kind of reveal. It doesn't make sense of it early on, and I don't think the show does the best job of explaining exactly what's going on, really. But the idea that the kind of the red room looks different for all of them, and they've all been in that space. So like, there's the bit where you've got the girls sort of dislocated in time on the one side. I think it's Nell and Shirley trying to get into the red room, and then it cuts to Luke, Theo doing kind of dance practice, and then the other side of the door, being the door handle being, shaken and stuff. That kind of the way in which the house kind of morphs, and that.
I'll admit to being thick. I didn't really get what that was trying to explain. I didn't understand that she was in the red room.
Yeah. That's the idea. Is that they've all kind of been in there,
right? Okay.
So it's like
Luke's treehouse as well.
Yeah.
And
they are,
that's the one.
Yeah.
So it's it's the room because it's got there's a window that's
a window like a
that's in that space. So it's kind of subtle things like that you don't necessarily pick up on the first watch, but is like you say, kind of just underneath, sort of deeply unsettling. I
think it's worth it for all those little things. I think it is worth a second watch, and if you can see where all the ghosts are, and then see if you can spot them when you watch it again. That was fun. It's not a bit scary. I just sat on the sofa going, "Oh my God, there it is!" As if I didn't see that before.
It does make me quite want to have a look at it again, actually.
Yeah, if I can find the article, I'll send you the link.
I'm going to try and persuade Kelly, who is really good to watch scary films with, because she's terrified, but she quite liked Bly Manor.
All right.
So I might trick her and say that wasn't very scary, was it? This is by the same.
So it's this one.
Yeah. But before I forget, I've looked up the refrigerator thing.
Yeah.
Just because I was wrong in that it was Jonathan Demme, not Joel Schumacher.
All right.
But he said, you've just come home from a movie, you had a great time, you go to the refrigerator to get a beer, you open the door and you say, wait a minute, if a film has got the audience until they open the fridge, maintains director Jonathan Demme, then, so I was wrong. Then that's all that matters. I'm going to start my own fridge test. And then apparently he did sort of base it on Hitchcock's icebox test.
Yeah. So,
but I would say that isn't all that matters. Go away, Jonathan Demme. I really, really get bothered if a film, The House of Cards of a narrative, collapses. I am really bothered. I get annoyed.
It's the difference between knowing, like, when you're watching it, if you are astute enough, which I'm not, to recognise when that's happening. I don't until I really think about it later. It's like, oh yeah, that wouldn't work. But it's too late.
Quite often we aren't. Quite often we do just. If it's bad enough that it goes and you go, hang on, what about so and so? What about that person? Like we were talking about Alien 3 the other week. Is he alive? Is he dead? What about that? Who's still going? When they've dropped all the narrative threads, then that's really bad. But when things don't quite work and they're kind of hoping you won't notice, that's.
Well, it ruins the possibility of a second viewing, doesn't it? We're all film fans, and when we see a film and love it, we want to take it home with us and watch it again. And it's a shame when that's disappointing.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's a bit like when they were trying to adapt The Big Sleep, and people sort of phoned Raymond Chandler up and said, "What happens to this person? What happens to that person?" He's like, "I have no idea. I wrote it drunk." So, so trying to adapt to Raymond Chandler is impossible because he doesn't do he just wants to keep it going forward.
So that's why Raymond Chandler needs to be adapted by only the best filmmakers.
Well, yes.
Call Michael Winner.
Well, The Big Sleep is an amazing film, but
not the Michael Winner version though.
I would say I would assume not. Having not seen it, but Hill House is very, very good. I would say it stops short from being an absolute classic because of its shortcomings. For my money, you'd be going, "What do you want, Ian? What do you want?" I just want
Perfection.
Perfection. And then I'll say, this is absolute stone cold, absolute. If it's The Sopranos of long form horror, then it's perfection. Whereas this is more the Game of Thrones of long form horror. Lots of it's good, but it ultimately has a disappointing destination.
So, we're winding up this discussion.
The magic of a podcast. Stella just held up a card saying, "I have to go soon."
You're spoiling the magic.
I didn't want to ruin it.
But no. I did have my eye on the time. I'd let it go a little bit.
Yeah.
But before we go to recommendations, is there anything else that anybody desperately wants to say about The Haunting of Hill House? I'll just say that was a very attractively turquoisey post-it note that you just held up, Stella. Yeah, that's grand. Okay, so a qualified recommendation then for an almost modern classic from all of us there. I'm really glad I watched it anyway, and I don't think I would have done if it hadn't been for all your recommendations. So, thank you so much. All right, so speaking of recommendations, let's have some and then wind up. Who'd like to go first?
Well, talking of your recommendations on this podcast, I'll just quickly say I ended up spending the weekend being ill, which is perfect timing, and binging His Dark Materials. Right up to the point where I think, Kirsty, you saw me on Twitter. I tweeted Jack Thorne just to sort of say, I finally watched it, and then I watched the latest episode live. And I don't know when I last watched an episode of anything live.
Right.
You're going, it's on in 10 minutes. And I sat down, and when it was over, I was like, there's no more. I just want to keep watching His Dark Materials. Why have I binged them? I felt binge's remorse. I was like,
I'm loving
but I could be watching Dark Materials.
I love the title sequence.
It's a beautiful title sequence.
Gorgeous.
Yeah, it's a brilliant adaptation.
Yeah,
absolutely amazing adaptation.
Yeah.
Weirdly, do you know what my favourite bit of the theme tune is?
The bit that goes.
Well, yes, exactly. but not during the magnificent, amazingly animated title sequence, but just right at the end of the episode when the credits come up. Just like black screen, dun 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 dun.
So good.
It's a great kind of make you want to watch next week kind of deal, which is why I've not watched any of the second series. I'm letting it all build up in the iPlayer, and then I'm going to binge it probably over Christmas.
Oh, it's so
cool.
I just love the fact that it's just really, really good to sort of see. I probably haven't read the books in a long time, but they're really memorable books, so they stick in my head. And it's the way he's stuff that is coming, and it like arrives early, and people who don't know what they're talking about are complaining. But it just shows how this is how you do TV.
Yeah, it's lovely. It's really lovely. It's our Sunday night.
Well, it's obvious we're going to go into our world parallel universe-wise, so let's get it over with and do it in episode 2 or whatever it is, and just open up that whole area, and then just so many things that are just absolutely brilliant about it.
Yeah, fantastic. Well done, Julie Gardner and Jane Tranter.
Yeah. We owe Doctor Who for this.
Yep, it's a logical next step. It's great. Kirsty, what's your recommendation?
Right, so I've got one, and I've recommended it before, but I've enjoyed it so much that I'm going to recommend it again.
All right.
So, by the time this episode goes out, the final episode of Natasha Hodgson's The Sink will have been released on BBC Sounds.
I did listen to the first episode, and I will listen to the rest of it. It's great.
It's great. It's genuinely hilarious and genuinely just disturbing and terrifying.
Shall I tell you what? Weirdly, it's genuinely relaxing as well, although I find that it is.
No, and Alice Lowe sort of role as the narrator. She says lovely little things like, "Oh, let's have a little drown."
And also, like near the top of the first episode, she says, "Lie down." Or something like, "Now you must make yourself comfortable. So lie down in your area." and now I always think about my bed as my area.
But I think it's 6 episodes altogether. So they're about 25 minutes each, and they, surrealist kind of sketch comedy primarily. But there's this just kind of, there are over a series of episodes these themes and characters that start to develop, which is quite lovely to sort of see how that kind of, I'm very excited for the last episode and kind of annoyed. Cool. I've been deprived of my normal podcast listening time because of,
Oh yeah. It's the podcasts are dependent on routines, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And having places to walk to and whatever. Yeah,
it's essential.
It just has reminded me. I don't think, because I binged it so quickly, the third of the Lovecraft. The third of the Lovecraft. Sorry. Was that going to be it?
No. I'd got to, but then for time I'll lose one. Ian will say A Shadow over Innsmouth.
You are completely correct, because I've just suddenly gone, because I literally was waiting for it so excitedly, and then I listened to it while walking. I didn't do any damn writing. I just went walking in spooky woods, listening to it.
Yeah.
And that's on my wife.
So.
But but yeah, and it's just been so good. It really is the best iteration of Lovecraft, I think. Although I haven't seen Fellow Out of Space.
Oh, I saw that last week.
Is it?
I watched. Yeah, it's on Amazon Prime, isn't it?
I know it's queued up. Is it? Is
that a recommendation, Kirsty?
Is it a good Nicolas Cage film, or a crazy Nicolas Cage film, or a bad
Nicolas Cage film? It's a beautiful moment. It's all a little bit too in your face for the kind of Lovecraft that I quite like, but
right.
That's why these Julian Simpsons are perfect, because they seem to be the only. That's how Lovecraft's always been for me. A bit like he's done it, and then it doesn't get done like that. It's like schlock and gore.
Yeah.
In Hollywood,
understated kind of existential dread, rather than But no, I mean it's certainly an experience. I will tell you that.
Okay. So. Stella, how about you?
I'm going to recommend a film that's, I think it's about 10 years old, but I only got around to watching it on Sunday, I think. You're Next. I'd not seen it, and I watched it, and it was loads of fun. It was really, really good.
I'm trying to remember what it is.
It's some people, they're in a big house, and then there's people outside sort of hunting them. They've got animal masks on. So it's a bit like a people hunter slasher type thing, but then by the end, it's quite serious at the start, and it is genuinely disturbing that there could be someone just outside in the dark with a crossbow. But then by the end, it's gone almost, not quite comedy, but maybe sort of black comedy, and it's got one of the best screen deaths I've ever seen.
You're right.
But yeah, it's on Amazon, and I finally got around to watching it, and I was really, really impressed. So yeah, check it out. It's a good short one as well. It's like 1 hour and 20 minutes, so you can
it's Barbara
squeeze it in.
Yeah.
Barbara, really, really enjoyed
Barbara
it.
Crampton's in it.
Right.
I don't think I've seen it.
Good. Okay. Oh, nice one.
It certainly looks like a film that if I had seen it, I'd remember seeing it.
It's really good.
My recommendation is also Amazon Prime. I just noticed this week, sometimes when I recommend things on Amazon Prime, they go away immediately. This one probably won't, because it's only just appeared on Amazon Prime, unless they're doing it for 1 week for some reason. It's Interview with the Vampire.
Oh. Yay!
Kirsty, you and I used to talk about these movies. I remember, you recommending, well, sort of qualified recommending Queen of the Damned to me, which I've now seen. But Interview with the Vampire is a great movie and a prime slice of 90s gothic, and probably one of the best Tom Cruise movies. It's one of the it's early on in the period of people realizing Tom Cruise is not just a pretty boy; he's actually a good actor.
Yeah, but before he went crazy, so there's like a
it's like a sweet spot.
Pre-cult.
Yeah. Oh dear, yeah. Mid to late 90s Tom Cruise, good stuff.
It's a fun film.
Yeah, it's well done, and
it gave us Kirsten Dunst.
Yeah.
She steals the movie.
I
she really does.
I found her not very clever, shall we say?
Oh, when you interviewed her,
yeah,
right.
She didn't strike me as someone who got stuff, but
well,
on that note.
she's good. She's good on screen.
Susan Sarandon was there as well, and she kept kind of looking a bit, and then explaining stuff, and then.
Right.
And then, she wasn't.
Well, maybe that's what that's the fault of the parents of theatre kids. She's been shoved in front of cameras since she was very small.
She might have been.
All right, I think that is it for this week. Thank you so much, everybody. I would give the listener, you're very welcome. My pleasure, my distinct pleasure. I have no idea what's happening next week, except that we'll do a podcast about something. So put that in your diaries.
Are we not doing the Legend of Hell House?
That's coming up. That will come up. Spoilers, but I just don't know exactly when.
Okay.
But, yeah. Okay. So, thank you very much, Kirsty. Thank you very much, Stella. Thank you very much, Ian. I'm Dan. You're the listeners who I'm talking to now. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.
You have been listening to And Now the Podcast Starts. Produced and released by Ambidextrous Solutions Limited. Presented by Kirsty Warrow, T.D. Velasquez, Stella Gaynor, and Ian Winterton. Special thanks to Greg Hume for our original theme music and to Brian Gorman for our original artwork. All dialogue and music clips from films, TV shows, and trailers are used for the purposes of criticism in the spirit of fair dealing as defined in UK law and fair use as defined in US law. No copyright infringement is intended. Please visit our home on the web, www.andnowpodcast.com, for more content and contact details. Or visit our Facebook pages at AndNowPod or at Lee Cushing Pod. Follow us on Twitter at AndNowPodcast or at Lee Cushing Podcast. If you'd like to donate to us, please visit patreon.com/AndNowPodcast. And now the podcast stops.